But to start with, the family of a bus driver, whose family say he was murdered, have told LBC 97.3 they think police have covered up the circumstances of his death. It's yet another headache for Commissioner Bernard Hogan-Howe. Now, the body of 53-year-old Kester David was found under a railway arch in Palmer's Green almost 2 years ago. Police have insisted it was suicide, but now these accusations of racism have surfaced and the case is to be reopened. Well, Kester David's brother, Roger, has been speaking with our reporter Tom Cheel, and he claims police failed to investigate properly because his brother was black.
He had gone missing for about a week and a bit, and we kept on leaving messages on his phones and going around to his house. And eventually we saw an article in the Enfield Independent or Advertiser saying the body of a bus driver found burnt.
How did your involvement with the police, their handling of the case, develop from there?
I got the telephone call and the officer said, let's face it, your brother committed suicide. And I said, absolutely not. He wouldn't have committed suicide. We knew that. We know our brother.
Why do you think the police said that he had?
It was an easy option because they didn't want to investigate. So rather than investigate the matter, if the Met Police said to a sample of people, oh, whoever committed suicide, quite a lot of them would most probably accept it and just kind of grieve and go on. But there was never anything in my mind which told me that he would have committed suicide, no.
What were your suspicions about the police motives then, and what was it like to carry the knowledge with you for so long that the official version of events they were giving was inaccurate?
Well, everything that the police said from suicide onwards, everything they told us, we kind of challenged because they were coming out with ridiculous stuff. They would show us CCTV images of my brother at a petrol station half an hour before he died. We looked at the CCTV and we just said, that's not him. And the police will say, yes, that's him. And then we get imaging experts, because that you have to pay for, obviously. And they'll say, no, that is not Kester, based on the framework or frame of the body and stuff. And then the police will say, oh yeah, you're quite right, it wasn't.
Do you think that would have happened if Kester was white?
I'm not so sure. I think most probably they would have investigated if it was a white person. I don't think much has changed within the police force since the Stephen Lawrence stuff. I would have hoped that things had changed, but it may be just a myth.
10 minutes after 7, listening there to the brother of Kester David, Roger, speaking with LBC 97.3 reporter Tom Cheel. Now, it's interesting to tell you that also yesterday the mother of murdered teen Stephen Lawrence, Doreen Lawrence, also said, while she's convinced Bernard Hogan-Howe, who's on this show in the next hour, is doing all he can within Scotland Yard, she doesn't think the picture has changed that much from those dark, dark days in which the investigation into her own murdered son was so badly handled. In a moment I'll be asking you for your views. This is a story of enormous importance in this city and indeed across the whole of the country, because you have to know that Scotland Yard is of course the lead police agency or force across the whole of the country, and the Commissioner is known as the top cop in the whole of the country. More than 6 months into the job, and Metropolitan Police Commissioner Bernard Hogan-Howe suddenly realised how tough the going is at the very top of the force. The Scotland Yard is accused of various things, racist suggestions of bungled investigations into death due to racism, suggestions of racist officers, and also suggestions that the phone system is not robust enough that if you were to ring the anti-terror hotline, you could actually have your details, unfortunately, picked up. So, the man at the very top of all of this joins me in the studio now. In just a moment. Commissioner, you'll know that Kester David's death is now being re-investigated by the Metropolitan Police. This is after his family, particularly his brother, who's been speaking with various media agencies and indeed with LBC. Well, during the course of our interview with Kester David's brother, he actually gave us a message for you.
I think your force needs to buck up its ideas and realise that black and ethnic people are here in Britain, we're part of society, and we request and demand the same kind of treatment as white people in Britain. The police have to start from the top and go right down to the bottom and make sure that they get rid of, eliminate any racial discrimination within the force.
Kester David's brother Roger, message for you, Commissioner. How would you respond?
I agree with him. I mean, the first point I'd make is that this is the world's greatest diverse city. and we're going to use that as a reason to be the best in the world at policing. We're not going to use it as an excuse for failing. And sometimes I do hear us, and sometimes others, saying that the diversity of London means that we have a bigger challenge.
But even Doreen Lawrence, who singles you out for praise, but her fear is that the police haven't advanced since the days of her son being murdered, since the death of Stephen Lawrence.
I thought I'd heard Doreen at times has acknowledged that there have been...
She says you're working damn hard at it, but she fears we're still back in those dark days.
I think when you have a horrible allegation, as we did last week, I think everybody's heart sinks. And there's no way that you can go through that and think, crikey, we're taking 10 steps backwards. But I think if you take able to take a cold analysis of it, the numbers I'm talking about they may be horrible allegations and they may be proved to be true, but they're not in the numbers that we've seen in the past. They are reducing every year, but we want to get to a stage where we have none. Can I just say on the case that we're talking about in terms of the Hester David case, is that what I've ordered this week is that up to now the investigation into that man's death, which happened in 2010, has been carried out within the borough. It's been reviewed within the borough. I've said this week I want our homicide command, the murder team, which is one of the best in the world, has a detection rate of about 94%, to investigate that event. And what I want to do first of all is to find out, as far as we can ever determine, was he murdered or did he die through another way? If you remember, it was first thought he committed suicide. The coroners recorded an open verdict because they can't be sure, because there is a concern that the investigation wasn't thorough enough. I want reassuring now to see whether or not we can find out, even after 2 years, is there anything that we can find out? And secondly, that even that investigation, which is by some of the world's best detectives, will be reviewed by an outside force at the appropriate times. We review serious investigations regularly. Those reviews will be carried out by another force, which we'll determine next week.